level for each country. So in each country you find differences. So it's so difficult sometimes looking from the outside when you say, now, well, you know, we go to Europe, now we decide to settle down in one country, now everything's great, I settle down there, but then I need to maybe have also some residence in that country or move people from here to there or doing this or doing that. It is complicated. And it only can be managed by, on the one side, trying to get a possibility of getting informed very well before you go there. Here in China, for example, that can be done by really using the services of the European office here, of the trade office, of the Chamber of Commerces, talking to them, get ready. The problem here is very simple. The problem here is that Chinese companies, in most cases, still don't know how to get that information. Maybe, traditionally, if you look at the environment where most of those companies have come from or have grown up, the way how to search for information is very much different than in Europe. European enterprises, they're used to having a question, going to a Chamber of Commerce, and they have to give them the information. They're used to, if they want to enter into a foreign market or want to get in a Chinese market, that they would contact like the Swiss Embassy in Beijing or the Swiss Chamber of Commerce in Beijing, and they will give them information. So the first and very important type of information, all the legal stuff, how is it with labor law, how does it work with residence permits, tax regulations. So what you actually need on paper, that's very easy to obtain. Basically, it's not difficult. You just have to approach the right people and the right organizations. And that can be done. However, I believe that many Chinese companies do not know those channels yet. And they are not used to just asking that information from those representative bodies, from the European Union or whatever. And this is why they are very unclear. And this first stage, or the biggest problems, just relate to formalities. So formalities pose a big challenge for Chinese. They in most cases, they don't know where to start from. Who should they ask? So they don't know where to get the information from, and they don't know who to ask. And this creates then a lot of complications. Now, going down to the next parts, here we have enterprise laws, competition, bureaucracy. So the problems I have mentioned here are very much on an entrepreneurial level with regards to formalities, with regards to the formal business environment. So we don't see the challenges here, the other challenges, but here we need to understand that many of those problems which Chinese companies mention relate not to the market, but even more complicated to even knowing how to find the information. So it's not just now you are there and it relates to your business. No, those don't even relate to your business. Those mentioned here relate to the company not being capable of knowing where to find the information. So we have seen here some differences. What we see here are operational issues. There's much more. There's much more challenges. It's much more complicated than this. But this shows one thing which is very clear and where a lot of challenges for Chinese companies when moving overseas come from. I've talked to many Chinese companies. We have done a lot of analysis on Chinese enterprises. So they say, I don't know, let's say when I'm in China, or whenever I'm here, and I talk to Chinese enterprises, they say, how is it with buying a house? Can I buy a house? How is it with my kids going to school? Do I get a residence permit? How long? How does it work? And every time I'm very puzzled. Why do they ask me? Why me? You know, they're just waiting, like, you know, they would just wait for asking me. If it is European companies, they would go to next door commercial office in Switzerland, or they would send an email and contact the Swiss business hub in China, and they would get the information. So the interesting thing, because of the very big difference in the background from where Chinese companies come from, and especially when it is those private companies, they lack a lot of access to, you know, we talked about info, like, you know, backup or financial channels, financing resources. But what is even more important and what is even more complicated is they lack the basis of information. They don't know where to start from. So they, in the past, you know, they would just go there. Like in the past, you would go there, not being able to speak the language, not knowing anything about Europe, and just start a restaurant. Well, it was okay, you know, just were there, and then, you know, man was in the kitchen, husband was in the kitchen, wife was just at the wine bar, and maybe the kid, because they learn the language very fast, was, you know, bringing in the dishes. So this is a Chinese traditional approach. Just go, just try it. Anyway, and then you will find out how it is. So the systematic approach is not, when it comes to, you know, information acquiring, is not the same as it is for European or for Western countries. And even now, there are still many companies, you know, some, the big players, they do research, they try to get the information. But for many others, they have no idea. I give you an example. We have, you know, like in Switzerland, we are very interested and we are very happy in having Chinese investment and Chinese companies getting into Switzerland. So, you know, some use a direct approach. Others, they would just talk to us. You know, if you happen to meet them, and then they would say, well, how can I get that information? And then I tell them, well, you know, it's you can approach, of course, local departments and local organizations in Switzerland on each canton. But you should start through maybe, you know, some official channels. Official channels provided by, you know, by China, because they have to direct you. Somebody has to take your hand and show you into the country and into the system and into the environment. Most of them, they don't know. So there's a lot that needs to be done. So when it comes down to operational issues, the basics are not the market issues or branding issues or whatever. So when it's the operational issues, the biggest problems they have is formalities, legal environment, laws, schooling, the residents,